Hello and namaste to all of you. Today in UPSC GS series, we are doing under Sustainable Development Unit 12 Civil Societies and Community Initiatives. Unit 12 Civil Societies and Community Initiatives we have already covered in our audio numbers 17, Introduction, Rio, Seattle, Geneva, Civil society initiatives in the regional context. In this audio number 18, we have to do country-based civil societies initiatives. The general instructions for the students are the same, that they have to listen the audio very carefully and note down 10 words from this audio by intuition listening. Point 4. Country-based civil societies initiatives. The Chipko Hug movement is one of the best known examples of people's environmental movements in India. This movement emerged in the hills of Uttar Pradesh in the early 1970s, at about the same time that the international community was recognizing environmental protection as a high priority objective in the Stockholm Conference. The instances of devastating floods in the Alaknanda region in the 1970s, wherein many lives were lost and the frequent landslides in the region were recognized as being linked to the large scale deforestation being caused by commercial logging. The tiger event of the Chipko movement was the government decision allotting a plot of forest in the Alaknanda Valley to a sports goods company from Allahabad for commercial logging after having denied to the villagers access to wood for making agriculture implements. The strength of this movement lay in its simplicity. The local population decided that the only way to protect their forest resources from commercial exploitation by big contractors was to simply embrace the trees. They would place themselves between the trees and the loggers' saw, making it impossible for felling to proceed. Based on the Gandhian philosophy of Satyagraha, this movement had universal appeal and led to many such similar protests against commercial logging throughout the hill region. A local NGO, the Soli Gram Swaraj Sangh (DGSS), helped the villagers organize their protest. The movement, led by Sundarlal Bahuguna and Chandi Prasad Bhatt, received wide publicity. In December 1973, there was a non-violent demonstration in Uttarkasi where thousands of people participated. The local hill women, being most directly affected by deforestation, played a prominent role in this movement. A famous incident of the time was the instance of some village women under the leadership of Gaura Devi successfully saving a large tract of forest from the contractor's axe in Reni. By 1975, the government had to abolish the system of issuing private contractors for felling and set up the Uttar Pradesh Forest Corporation in 1975 in order to oversee this function. In the 70s, the Chipko resistance spread to various parts of the Garhwal Hills, forcing the government to rethink its policy on forest management in the hills areas. A 15-year moratorium on felling was recommended for the Himalayan forests in UP. The message of the Chipko movement spread to various other parts of the country as well. The Chipko movement inspired the Apiko movement in South India in the early 1980s. The Apiko movement in the Uttarakhand was a response to a commercial forest policy that promoted the raising of monoculture plantations of teak and eucalyptus at the cost of tropical natural forests containing mixed species that were valuable not only for the local people for fodder, fuel, etc., but also for ecological ends such as prevention of soil erosion and water retention. Apico, Apico Chaluwali, launched by the youth of Salkani village on the lines of the Chipko movement, involved the local youth embracing the trees embarked for felling up by contractors, finally forcing the felling orders to be withdrawn. The agitation also spread quickly to other districts, creating awareness among the villagers throughout the Western Ghats. Movements against commercial felling also emerged in the tribal belts in the central India, such as in Jharkhand and Bastar, where there was widespread agitation against the government's policy to convert mixed natural forests into plantations of commercial tree species. The demand of the people was that forest ownership and management must revert from state to community hands and that local communities should be actively involved in the afforestation programs. The upsurge in people's movements has resulted in many instances in bringing about alterations in policy decisions. For instance, most of the movements opposing discriminate logging for commercial purposes came together to oppose the Draft Forest Bill of 1982, forcing the government to reconsider its decision and not bring the bill to Parliament for ratification. The incorporation of popular demand in policy making was reflected in the National Forest Policy 1988, which moved away from focusing on the commercial value of forests towards recognizing the conservation value of forests, and the Circular on Joint Forest Management 1990, which recognized the value of people's participation in forest management. Thus, people's movements have proved successful in asserting people's rights to manage forests. In this endeavor, environmental movements have been greatly strengthened by the able assistance of environmental NGOs as well. Similar movements have grown around the use of other natural resources such as fisheries. In the late 1990s, after a long struggle, the displaced people of the Tawa Dam on the Narmada River successfully procured fishing rights on a 5-year lease in the reservoir on a cooperative basis, displacing in turn the public sector, corporation, and the private contractor operating in the area earlier. The Tawa Matsya Sangh, a cooperative of tribal fishermen displaced by the dam, was formed after the struggle. Apart from the positive impact on the livelihoods of the fishermen, the Tawa Matsya Sangh also ensured that the fish conservation rules applicable to the reservoir were observed properly. This was a typical example of the good management, use, and development of natural resources by the local communities. Another issue that was witnessed large scale popular protests is that of large dams which cause loss of forests and agricultural lands. Many people's movements have emerged against large dams and river valley projects, though the primary negative impact of large dams is that of population displacement, there are also environmental issues such as deforestation, siltation, siltation, waterlogging, and salinization. One of the oldest agitations against dams is the one against the Tehri Dam on the Bhagirathi River in the Himalayan region. The Tehri बांध विरोधी संघर्ष संघर्षण Sangarshan Samit is led by the famous Chipko Andolan leader Sundarlal Bahuguna. A similar protest was led by Chandi Prasad Bhatt against the Vishnu Prayag Dam on the Alaknanda River. The, the, the Koilkaro hydroelectric power project initiated in 1973 also witnessed opposition from the tribal populations in the Jharkhand region. In Bihar, the Jan Sangharsh Samit and the Jan Sanyojan Samit were formed and later united as the Koilkaro Jan Sangharshan. The Sangathan organized a Kam Roko Stop Work campaign in the late 1970s. In July 1984, the government announced that it would proceed with the project even if force had to be used, but armed police personnel faced stiff resistance from the people. The announcement in 1995 to renew the project led to further mobilization in the area, with thousands of people participating in rallies and satyagrahas, preventing the laying down of the foundation stone of the project. In the case of Silent Valley hydroelectric project in Kerala, when it became clear that the project would considerably damage the tropical rainforest of the region, the Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad (KSSP) organized several mass petition campaigns. The local population and many local organizations were involved in the Save the Silent Valley movement. The government, in response to this popular protest, abandoned the project in 1984. A similar success protest against the Vedati Dam in Karnataka resulted in the government abandoning the project in the early 80s. The most high profile movement against big dams in India is the Narmada Bachao Andolan, Save the Narmada movement, against the Sardar Sarovar project on the Narmada River. The protest was started in Gujarat in the 1980s under the leadership of Medha Patkar. Though the movement has not been successful in installing the project completely, it did lead to the revocation of funding by the World Bank and the Japanese government. The national campaign against big dams has brought together around 100 groups from around the country in order to generate policy debate around the issue. The environmental movements have brought together the poor and the marginalized from throughout India in a struggle to protect their interests and survival. Environmental protests now pose a serious challenge to the development ideology in India. Recent years have also seen a proliferation of environmental NGOs in India. Over 1,000 NGOs in India are devoted exclusively to environmental protection. The National Alliance for People's Movements has brought together several such organizations. The India offices of various international NGOs such as WWF India, Greenpeace India, Oxfam India, etc. work to etc. work on research relating to environmental protection and sustainable development. There are also Indian groups such as the Center for Science and Environment (CSE), the Energy Resources Institute, TERI, the Consumer Unity and Trust Society CUTS, contributing to national level policy making. Besides these larger groups, there are numerous grassroots NGOs such as Tarun Bharat Sangh and Tava Matsya Sangh spread out across the country that are contributing in strengthening environmental initiatives. Thus, much of the momentum for environmental protection is emerging at the grassroots level. Yet, it must be remembered that people's movements result in extreme cases and can and must be avoided. There would not arise a need for people's movements if the government ensures people's participation in the environmental decision making process. The best way to strengthen initiatives at sustainable development is to ensure that law and policy initiatives keep pace with the changing social milieu and popular demands. Members of the general public have an important role to play in the decision making relating to the environmental protection as pressure groups on government, as vigilance agents, helping to focus attention on potential environmental harm as public interest groups that take up environmental litigation at different levels as spokespersons of environmental causes in impact inquiries and as part of advisory panels and agencies constituted for environmental protection. In sum, public participation generates public confidence in the decision making process and ensures public acceptance of the decision, resulting in an overall strengthening of initiatives towards environmental protection and sustainable development. Summary of the Unit 12 of Sustainable Development. The initiatives aimed at environmental protection taken by states at the national, regional, and international levels are not sufficient to ensure the achievement of the objective of environmental protection and sustainable development. A comprehensive survey of initiatives towards environmental protection must include initiatives that spring directly from the grassroots level. Often, these initiatives are actually in opposition to state policies, indicating the relevance of encouraging enhanced participation in environmental law and policy making. Consulting the affected people from the very beginning enhances the legitimacy of public inquisition. NGOs play an increasingly visible and vital role in addressing the problems of environmental degradation. The initiatives taken by various NGOs at the national, regional, and international levels cannot be overlooked when assessing the initiative towards environmental protection. They play a dual role. On the one hand, questioning the wisdom of government policy decisions and keeping a check on government activities, and on the other hand, lending support to the government in implementing and strengthening its environmental initiatives. Unit 13, Community Knowledge. Point 1, Introduction. Point 2, Traditional knowledge. Point 3, Modern scientific knowledge, that is measures to be taken by the scientific community. Point 4, Integration of scientific and traditional knowledge for sustainable development, that is point 1, Agriculture and forestry. Point 2 is conservation of biodiversity. Point 3 is artisanal technologies. Point 4 is health and medicine. Point 5, partnership between scientific community and indigenous people. And at the last, summary on the community's knowledge. Point 1, Introduction of community knowledge. Community knowledge refers to the knowledge possessed by different communities and societies all over the world that is utilized to carry out the day-to-day activities. Community knowledge includes number first, scientific and codified knowledge associated with occupations and lifestyles influenced by industrialization, and second, knowledge associated with traditional occupations, practices in local cultures is still engaging a large majority of populations, especially in developing countries. For simplicity, these two types of knowledge are broadly categorized as modern scientific knowledge and traditional experiential knowledge. In general, modern scientific knowledge is codified, systematically classified, is acquired through institutionalized learning, and in many ways has a universal character. Traditional knowledge, on the other hand, is empirical, is acquired through practice and experience, and is therefore related to cultural and physical resources of the location. We have seen in the earlier units that many of the sustainable development concerns arise out of the industrialization trajectory. Traditional knowledge not being connected to industrialization is thus seen as providing alternate and additional approaches to achieving sustainable development. Several indigenous or traditional knowledge and practices developed through the centuries by different indigenous and local communities being sustainable are also receiving attention of sustainable development efforts. Community knowledge includes scientific knowledge that is the basis of industrial development and traditional knowledge, and both have separately contributed in their own way towards the process of development of mankind. Industrialized societies rely mainly on scientific knowledge, whereas others are rich in traditional knowledge. The attainment of sustainable development calls for balanced, interrelated policies aimed at economic growth, poverty reduction, human welfare, and social equity amongst all nations and communities. Governments all over the world and other stakeholders have realized that it is not only necessary to respect varied cultures and traditions, but also that the enrichment of diversity is in itself the path for overall sustainable development. Accordingly, the two forms of knowledge should be combined, enhanced, and harnessed, and greater use of both scientific knowledge and technology and traditional knowledge and practices need attention. Many issues related especially to sustainable natural resources management and biodiversity conservation require the partnership between scientific and traditional knowledge. Thus, moving towards sustainable development in many areas will require a closer cooperation between scientists in formal organized institutions and the holders of traditional knowledge in informal unorganized sector such as communities in non-industrialized regions. This new and emerging understanding was also deliberated upon in the World Conference on Sciences (WCS) organized by United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization (UNESCO) in 1999 in Budapest, Hungary, to address the issue of knowledge and sustainable development. The conference recommended enhancement and harnessing of both traditional knowledge and scientific capabilities for sustainable development. In this conference, the Declaration on Science and the Use of Scientific Knowledge was adopted, which affirms that scientific knowledge has led to remarkable innovations that have been of great benefit to humankind. Yet, at the same time, it also notes the challenge remaining to use this knowledge in a responsible manner to address human needs and aspirations. This is a task that needs many partners and which calls for a broad collaboration between science and society in meeting the challenges of the future. In paragraph 1 of the declaration, it is stated the sciences should be at the service of humanity as a whole and should contribute to providing everyone with a deeper understanding of nature and society, a better quality of life, and sustainable and healthy environment for present and future generations. Scientists need to be aware of the social and cultural settings of their research policies for finding viable solutions to many sustainable development problems at the local level. Proper interaction between science and local and indigenous cultures is important. In this context, paragraph 26 of the Declaration, Annexure 1 observes traditional and local knowledge systems as dynamic expressions of perceiving and understanding the world can make and historically have made a valuable contribution to science and technology, and that there is a need to preserve, protect, research, and promote this cultural heritage and empirical knowledge. The WCS report under the section entitled Modern Science and Other Systems of Knowledge recommends Annex 1. Governmental and non-governmental organizations should sustain traditional knowledge systems through active support, and the societies that are keepers and developers of this knowledge, their ways of life, their languages, their social organization, and the environments in which they live, and fully recognize the contribution of women as as repositories of a large part of the traditional knowledge. Governments should support cooperative between holders of traditional knowledge and scientists to explore the relationships between different knowledge systems and to foster interlinkages of mutual benefit. In recent years, representatives of the international scientific and technological communities, non-governmental organizations, NGO, community of traditional knowledge and practices, and people from business and industry have initiated a dialogue and have agreed to explore together with UNESCO the possibility of developing partnership projects in different parts of the world. Point 2. Point 2 is traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge is the indigenous knowledge possessed by various local communities accumulated through traditional and present day-to-day activities. The basis of this knowledge lies in relating community and its social, economic, and cultural activities to local environment. The term traditional knowledge is described in literature as follows. Traditional knowledge is a cumulative body of knowledge, know-how, practices, and representations maintained and developed by peoples with extended histories of interaction with the natural environment. These sophisticated sets of understandings, interpretations, and meanings are part and parcel of a cultural complex that encompasses language, naming and classification systems, resource use practices, ritual, spiritually, and worldview. Traditional knowledge develops within certain cultural groups or communities over a given period of time and within a specific environmental and social settings. At the same time, these communities have accepted and adopted elements from other knowledge systems. The practitioners of traditional knowledge tend to view people, animals, plants, and other elements of the universe as interconnected by a network of social relations and obligations. Traditional knowledge provides the basis for many aspects of everyday life and occupations. For example, number 1, hunting, fishing, and gathering. Number 2, agriculture and husbandry. Number 3, preparation, conservation, and distribution of food. Number 4, location, collection, and storage of water. Number 5, coping with disease and injury. Number 6, interpretation of meteorological and climatic phenomena. Number 7, manufacture of clothing and tools. Number 8, construction and maintenance of shelter, orientation and navigation on land and sea, management of ecological relations of society and nature. Number 11, adaptation to environmental or social change. 13.3, modern scientific knowledge. We will see this this topic in our next audio. Okay, thank you.